I'm 19 now. Some people would say that sentence with a smile. Or some jubilee of which grows in the gap of what they used to be. They celebrate or look at it as some great achievement. Perhaps it is, to them at least. To me, the date associated with it, my birthday, has absolved into the most worthless, meaningless date. As time and time I was shown that it was for everyone else but not me. Every family member, the cold dejection of my identity for some superb reality where they deserve some praise akin to a messiah. In a sense, I suppose this is why the date became ultimately meaningless to me. 19 years, and yet it only feels like a reminder of what could be. I'm often told I dwell on the side of pessimism, but I would support the theory or idea that we simply do not acknowledge who we are or what we feel. In therapy, we call this distraction. In diagnosis, we call it dissociation. So many words for running away from ourselves and the perpetual hell we create, where each year serves as a reminder of the next, only to be mashed into the jaws of a selfish, narcissistic society that forever feasts upon the corpse of humbleness. I'm not one to lie. I have quite the hatred for this. I quite have the hatred for this. But even with my birthday and this diagnosis of society, it further pulls me to understand what the feeling is and where this began. During this first time I wrote this script, I thought about it. My feelings of isolation, alienation, my want to connect, and the need is never met. I thought about it. The feeling, I trace it back to my childhood, where I watched my father beat my mother. Such a memory, once emotionful, has become numb, detached for me. I watched the primality of man, the violence of man, in the matter of seconds as he hit my mother across the face. That violence became who I am. That is when I began to feel different, not human. It persisted and eventually turned into another event. In 9th grade, Newfane, people spread rumors that on Halloween, I was going to shoot up the school. This was untrue on every basis, but I was kicked out on the basis of mental health. I soon learned that my mental health would be used as a further tool to dehumanize me because I need to act human, not be human. I think about this as yet another feeling of being different. Of being not human. Something different, foreign, estranged from the society of which its womb birthed me. It's hard to even talk about now after all these years. But to say I am not violent would be dishonest with you and myself. I remember the feelings that surrounded that event. Merely a month ago from that event, I had attempted on my own life. And now people further turned a misunderstood, traumatized child into another spectacle, a news piece. Such feelings I had described as anger, but rather are frustration. Anger for me is cold and calculated, akin to a dagger across your back, slicing me open. I now look at this with disappointment, dejectment. You, all the people involved, and anyone who quotes this would never even understand or begin to understand violence and anger, or what homicide or being close to taking a life would be. I do. I almost took my father's life. I was 12. 2019, I believe. I was in 6th grade. The details are fuzzy, but I remember clearly 3 months of a psychosis episode. And 12-year-old me told no one. Why? 12-year-old me understands what 19-year-old me understands more now. This world doesn't want help. It wants profit. One weekend I went over. This was the climax of that episode. He went to bed as he typically did. I waited. I listened till I heard his snoring. Then I snuck into the kitchen. I took a knife. The biggest one I could find. The biggest in the knife rack. I walked to his bedroom. I stood there. He was dead asleep. The smell of alcohol and rot permeated the room. He had no idea I was there. 12 years old. About to take a life. I'm not quite sure how long I stood there. I remember his breathing, the snoring, the way he drooled, the moonlight peeking through the windows, and I remember that feeling. It's a feeling I feel now, talking about it. The dissonance in my head. It was like a string was snapped, but I never struck. Never even attempted. In fact, I walked back to the kitchen and put the knife away, having never taken that crimson step. I laid in my bed. Thinking. Just thinking. How I almost took my father's life. The next morning I ran away. Back to my mom's, since it was joint custody. I remember the next day of school. I had practiced my appearance up to this point. To be somewhat of a comedian is what my appearance was. I pretended I felt more emotions than I did. I pretended. All of them laughing, playing, learning, another day for them. The weekend before, I almost murdered a man. I almost took a life. And none of them would even know. I never told another soul. Until I was 18. I carried that guilt and shame through hospitalizations and suffering. I remember, particularly in high school. Senior year, I'd watch other students have friends, talk, enjoy life. I'd consider letting my guard down, walking over, giving them my time. But I remembered something I learned when I ran away, or when I attempted on my life before that 9th grade year, or even in that 9th grade year. I am not them. I am other. I am not human. I think forward to my 18th birthday. My birthdays had always been meaningless in hindsight, and I already felt that way. I already felt that way on that day. The typical routine, fake excited wishes, when in reality, my existence that day only served their self-righteous delusions of family. The most symbolic action on this day, though at first seeming narcissistic, is when my mother was being handed gifts. I hate gift giving, and practically always have. It's materialistic and worthless. It's a show that instead of enjoying and consuming my time and what I had accomplished, you'd rather appeal to me as a consumer. But I say this is symbolic because all day while at my grandparents' house, everyone congratulated her. They celebrated her. I had survived to be an adult. I had published some books at this point. Been to a couple of events, gotten somewhat of a start. I had survived, grown, and built something small and meaningful. And yet I was still other. Still not human. I had gained jobs, I had lost jobs, I had worked jobs. I had done more than I feel I had seen most people in my family do in their years, whether spanning from 19 that I am now to 60 years old. It wasn't much, it wasn't big business, I'm not a millionaire, but I had done something more meaningful even back then. Something more. The smile on people's faces, and it wasn't even acknowledged. Instead, my mother was celebrated. She was treated better because I wasn't human. Because I was a toy. A systemic issue finally given a symbol on one day. I would never be a person to the family. My accomplishments didn't matter, and I don't matter to them. Everything, events I left out of this script, my accomplishments, all equated to some person who I feel and know was never there, never actually cared, or at least felt like it. That's the day I finally realized how meaningless it all was, and how worthless my family was to me. I survived because of myself. I did everything myself. And I had help. And I made my mistakes. I wasn't the best. I was a bit narcissistic at times. I said things I regret. And that's my cross to bear. I never thought of myself as a hero, but I propose that perhaps I'm now also a villain. I'm not the hero you want or the villain you need, I propose. Or maybe I'm wrong, but I stand to be corrected. I was a social orphan. I never needed them. They needed me. They needed me for status. And that realization, all I could feel was anger, hatred, which grew in the crevices of my soul and propelled me forward to outmatch them. My birthday was finally shown its true colors, a meandering parade of ego stroking. Should calm down. And I finally understand that I am not human and I am other. I would never want to be human. Or any of the people that I have grown to hate. I would never want to be any of them. Any of what we are. I remember a quote from my high school therapist in the realm of forgiving and forgetting. She had told me, "You're not what happened to you." Which she meant well. She meant it with her full heart. And she was always helpful. But I always pondered that. You aren't what happened to you. I had later come to think of this as rather dishonest. I am. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, if you change the context. I am what happened to me. My trauma, my abuse, it changed me. It didn't break me, it alchemized me. Till now, I can fully realize what I am. I was forever changed. The inner child was dead, and I could never get back the wasted years, my hatred, my anger, and I was all of that. I felt all of that deeply. It rotted my soul. And I was valid to be. Because that's what separates me from most people. Why I always felt other and not human. Because humanity lies to itself. It buys gratitude journals. It denies its feelings. But I don't. It appeases to the abuser. It justifies abuse. It forgives and forgets. I don't. I don't believe in moving on. Every day, every year, every decade in the future is now tainted by these people. My suffering is created. And now, I'm supposed to forgive and forget? No. No, I refuse. And for as long as I breathe, for as long as I awake, for as long as I suffer, there will be no forgiveness. Because I can't. I remember, it replays daily, every night, every day, tormented. I cannot forgive you. And I cannot forget you. I will not excuse your actions. If I have to burn this whole world down to feel the warmth of the fire, then take this script as my justification. I am angry. Real anger. Cold, calculated, unnerving. And I'd rather be this. Rather be angry. Rather be dishonest and miserable than prescribed and dishonest. I refuse to be human. I reject humanity and its notions. Through accepting my hate, I alchemize my love too. I am both. I am neither wolf nor sheep. I am both. And always have been. So I think about this date. Today. The infamous what if? What had been different? Because today I was supposed to be born. I was supposed to be born. My due date. What would have been different? What would have been different? What if I killed my father? Would things have been any different? If I was born on this day, would things have been any different? I suppose my constant challenge is why I am alive, being the contrarian and being honest with myself. And I suppose that's why I don't care for my birthday. It's dishonest. April 13th is not my birthday, but poses the question, what if? The challenge, it's much more important than a date to me. And this challenge, this date, April 13th, is much more important to me than some birthday. Some day that was never about me.